Real esoteric spirituality without all of the fluff, without all of the nonsense. This is the ThunderWizard.com YouTube channel. Click subscribe and then hit the little bell button so that you can be notified whenever I've uploaded a video or when I'm doing the live Q&A videos. And good evening, Thunder Wizards. I didn't announce that I was going to be here tonight, so I'm not expecting anybody to show up, and that's okay. But I wanted to continue the discussion that we were having last night about thunder magic. Specifically, wanted to talk to you about the THurisaz Rune and its association with thunder magic. And what we focused on last night, as I said, there are some very in-depth, very complicated, specific types of thunder magic that I am aware of. I even have some books and manuscripts of Taoist stuff having to do with all that. And as you know, the spirit fighting that I practiced is a form of thunder magic, and that energy is supposed to be lightning itself and all that. So this is important to me. I won't lie to you. I like the idea of magic, and I like the idea of, probably for the same reasons that you do, I like the idea of being able to create changes in the universe, changes in my environment. And magic is really about that. You're trying to make an external change on the universe around you. So having been in and around this kind of stuff for a long time and having tasted some real power, my resulting thought process now is that really the only thing that matters is being happy. Power doesn't give you happiness. Strength doesn't give you happiness. Fame doesn't give you happiness. Money doesn't give you happiness. And now as I look back on it, the thunder magic that I am aware of, the thunder magic that I practiced, is really all about your boundaries. And so I probably mentioned the THurisaz Rune, and that the THurisaz Rune is about boundaries. I think I may have mentioned somebody that I have been listening to on YouTube who made what I believe to be a superficial connection between THurisaz and black magic. And my experience is that THurisaz is exactly the opposite of that. That THurisaz is used to fight against black magic. So if I, and to be honest, although all of the runes are magical, and I certainly do not sit here and try and give off the impression that I have mastered the runes, mastered magic of the runes. There's a lot of people that know a lot more than I do. I don't even talk about bind runes because I find that to be such a profound subject that I wouldn't want to, sully it with my lack of understanding. So if there is one rune that I feel that is a rune that I would comfortably say that has to do with magic, meaning affecting your external environment, would definitely be THurisaz. And I would go so far as to say that THurisaz is a very safe rune to use for magic. And again, this goes in contrast with what I was hearing a person say about THurisaz having to do with, because THurisaz means thirst, which means giant, therefore it's connected to Loki, therefore it's connected to dark magic, to magic in general, manipulating and all that. And I felt that was a mistake. I understand the logic, but I find it to be very superficial, and I don't find it to have a lot of depth to it. And I find it to be ultimately inaccurate, in my opinion. But at the same time, if you were to ask me which rune I would use for magic, I would use THurisaz. And so somebody commented, and I love it when people comment and give me information that I haven't had before or hadn't thought about before. And I don't remember the gentleman's name. I think it's a guy. And he left a comment, and what happens is I can see, in my little my dashboard on YouTube, I can see comments that have been left, and I can see the first few sentences, like it gives me a preview. And then I click on it, and it'll take me to somebody's comment, and I can see whether or not I want to respond to it, or if it's spam, erase it, or whatever. And I was really interested in this one because this guy said, well, we know how to use the THurisaz rune for magic, and it's used for cursing in the Skirnis Mall. And that really got my attention. I went, wow, because it's been a long time since I read that, and that hadn't been in my mind. So I went and dug up the Skirnis Mall, and I read through it. And I was fully prepared to say, you know what, you're absolutely right. Here's what it says there. And I didn't know what I was talking about. But interestingly enough, what it did is it reinforced my beliefs. And so if you're not familiar with the myth, it is the mythology, it's the story of Frey. And Frey climbs up to Odin's seat, in the highest heavens. And what's interesting is, again, remember that the THurisaz rune is about boundaries, and that fighting against negativity and fighting against black magic, fighting against demons and trolls and thyrses, which is what Thor does. This is his rune. Remember that all of that has to do with protecting boundaries. Remember what I said last time, that black magic is, no matter what kind of black magic you're talking about, whether it's a love spell or whether it's a curse that you're putting on somebody, whether it's, you want to do violence, you want to make money, whatever it is that you're trying to bend the rules so that you can get more than you think you deserve, which again, we could get into all of that kind of ridiculous nonsense. Meaning that, for somebody to be in that mindset, they're really not understanding how the universe works. So what I'm saying is that anybody who does black magic really doesn't understand how the universe works. That's why there's all of those, fairy tales of people getting their hands onto forbidden magic and doing things, and then they get what they want, but then things end up, working against them in really negative ways. And then there's always a moral to the story of, you can't get something for nothing, basically, and that has come down into modern times where, people sell their soul for the devil in order to become famous or rich, and then you find out that they're miserable. They get all the things they think they want, but they're miserable because they sold their soul. I'm not a Christian, but that's definitely what that represents, is the symbolism of walking out of your own integrity, which means you walk out of your own knowledge and awareness that you have within you all of infinity. And there's no need for you to break your own rules with yourself to get everything that you want. It's a fallacy. So all of the energy that it takes for you to try and wrench yourself away from your own integrity in order to get what it is they think you want, that's what causes the damage. It's not getting the fame or the money or whatever it is you think you want. That stuff is neutral. That can't hurt you. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. If you're aligned in your integrity, you have everything. This is a long-winded way of saying that the THurisaz rune is about boundaries, and using the THurisaz rune is to fight against those entities or beings and things within yourself, really, is what it represents. Fighting against those things within yourself that want to take you out of your boundaries. So I wanted to take a look at, if you'll indulge me, I wanted to take a look at some of the things in the Skirnis Mall, because, as I said, this gentleman said, but the Thurs rune is used to curse because, and unfortunately he deleted his comments, so I couldn't read all of it. Maybe he thought, because I do this sometimes when people challenge me and they don't know what they're talking about, I'll tear them a new one. Maybe he was afraid I was going to do that. Maybe he saw it and realized that, he wasn't. Well, maybe he doubted the accuracy of his statement. I don't know why he deleted it. But I wish he had kept it, because it would have made for some good discussion. So I'm not going to read the whole myth here, but Skirnir Mall is it's called the Lay of Skirnir. Skirnir is a servant of Frey. So Frey, as you know, is the god of fertility, the god of earthly abundance, the god of physical health, of procreation, but also joy, pleasure. He's the god that you worship when you want to have a good physical life, and he's like the friend of human beings, and so he has a very specific role here. Now, I'm going to say, based on some things that, when you look at mythology, it's important to be able to understand what the significance of the words are. If you just read it and don't look deeply into it, you may miss something important, or you might even miss it altogether. So when I saw that, one of the first things I thought was, he might be right, but he also might not be seeing what the significance is. Because bear in mind that in the mythology, the gods are not humans. And the gods represent all kinds of things, forces in the universe, but they represent things within ourselves. So the things that are happening in mythology are there to help us understand our own spiritual evolution. And so when I'm looking at this myth, I'm going to look at, what does this represent in the human beings? So bear in mind what I said, that the rune THurisaz is about boundaries, and that black magic and curses are designed for people who are trying to break boundaries in order to get something they think they're not allowed to have. And that includes curses, trying to curse somebody, that you're not acknowledging their boundaries or your boundaries or anything. So the first thing we have here is that it says, Freyr, son of Njord, one day had seated himself on, let's see if I can pronounce this, Hlidskjalf. Did I pronounce that right? Hlidskjalf. I think it means high shelf. Hlidskjalf, and looked over the world. So he seated himself on Hlidskjalf and looked over the world. To sit upon Hlidskjalf was forbidden to all but Odin and Frigg by Odin's decree. And then it goes on to say, then he saw he in the world of Ettins, which is giants, a fair maiden as she went from the hall of her father to her bower. And that sight made him heavy of heart. Skirnir was the name of Frey's servant. Njord bade him. Anyway, so and I don't want to go into the whole thing, but now you know who the setting and you know who the characters are. So what's interesting is, remember, THurisaz is a rune of boundaries. So what's the first thing that we see here? The first thing that we see here is that Frey climbs up into Odin's seat when it has been forbidden him to do so. So right off the bat, we have Frey, which may represent your lower nature, your physical nature, the things connected to the desire. So we can just connect them to desire. And as you know, I've got nothing against desire. I think fulfilling your desires is what it's all about. But just from the beginning, we've got him climbing into Odin's seat. He's getting into stuff that's none of his business. It's not his job to do that. And then it says that from there, he sees this giantess, and he becomes heavy of heart. Why? Because he can't have her. So her name is Gurther. Gurther means fenced in. So just from that name, we know that she's not available. She's off limits. For whatever reason, I'd have to really, really look into it. And anyway, I don't have the time to do that right now. But I am here to tell you that you have been lied to about the law of attraction. As you know, I recently put up a video talking about the missing elements of the law of attraction. And I used verbatim some of the teachings of perhaps the most popular law of attraction teacher out there. This is a woman who claims to channel a male entity, is extremely popular. She's extremely rich and successful, and people from all over the world keep coming back to her month after month, year after year, taking her seminars. And yet, the majority of those people are not able to instantly manifest their desires and their intentions. And the reason for that is because the law of attraction, as it is being taught, is only being given to you partially. Because if you understand that there is a law of attraction and a law of manifestation, and if you combine the law of attraction and the law of manifestation, it works every time. But they are withholding from you the true teachings about the law of manifestation and how you have to combine the law of manifestation with the law of attraction. When you have those two together, as I said, you are able every time to manifest your intentions and your desires. So why are they keeping you from the truth? It's very simple. Because if they give you the whole truth, then you don't have to keep going back to them and buying their books and going on cruises with them and buying their seminars. So I have discovered what the law of attraction is and what the law of manifestation is and how they work. These are ancient shamanic practices that have been practiced for tens of thousands of years by shamans who understand the nature of life force energy and how it works. I'm going to share this with you, and if you want to master this and not have to keep going back and buying books and paying for seminars, I am going to lay out exactly what all of this is. If you want to keep going back to them, I'm happy for that too. I mean, I think it's great to spend money going to teachers, and I think it's great to go and spend money to work with mentors. I have a mentor that I work with, so I have nothing against that. So there's nothing wrong with getting together with people and going on cruises and having these seminars and feeling good and focusing on some of the aspects of the law of attraction. But if you don't want to be addicted to that, if you don't want to be dependent upon some other being from some other plane telling you what the truth is, you can master this on your own. You don't need them. Once you understand how this works, you can do it yourself. So I am offering a course in Mastery of Manifestation. To get started with that, go to thunderwizard.com, scroll down on the right, you will see Manifestation Mastery Course. Now, for those of you who are already signed up as a Thunder Wizard subscriber, then you can have a choice between just focusing on the Shamanism Mastery course, which if you really study that, you will find out where the law of attraction is and the law of manifestation, and you will be able to put those two together. But if you want to cut to the chase and get Mastery of Manifestation along with the Mastery of the Shamanism course, then you want to sign up for the Manifestation Mastery course. So that's my announcement. Keep your eyes open. I'm going to be uploading a lot of videos both here and onto the Patreon site. And just keep your eyes peeled because this is just the beginning. All right, talk to you soon. So she's already surrounded by a boundary. She's fenced in. And what's interesting is that Frey gets to the top and he sits in Odin's seat and he doesn't say, wow, she's really beautiful, with this idea of that he deserves her. And he's like, I'm going to go and talk to her, fight away. You know, he doesn't go to Odin and say, hey, Odin, I want to, can you, he doesn't go to Loki. He doesn't go to anybody. He just immediately becomes depressed. That tells you right there that he has this experience that this is off limits to him. So he goes to his, and now you're going to see he comes out of his integrity even more. He goes to his servant, Skirnir, which, as I understand it, means the bright one. Some people have said it represents symbolism of the sun. If that's true, then Skirnir represents an aspect of the soul, because the sun is the symbol of the soul. So what Frey here is doing is that he's wanting to connect this to his soul. And that, of course, I'm 100% behind. And he talks him into going to see this, and again, the question is, well, why didn't Frey go do it? Why didn't Frey's a Wayne? The Waynes and the giants are, they're actually, more vibrational connection to each other than the gods and the giants. Because the gods and the Waynes fight with each other because of their different vibration. So it's interesting. He's not doing this himself. Whenever I read that, I always felt that was kind of a wimp move on his part, which again is not like Frey. Now his next move is going to bear that out, because what he does is he goes to his servant Skirnir, which means the bright one, and if people are right, then it represents the soul, and he gives his flaming sword that is his to use to fight in Ragnarok. That's what he's supposed to use that, and that sword guides your hand, so it knows what the opponent's going to do and guides you before, as you're fighting, before you even get there, and you can, it helps you to fight against your enemy. So it's probably the most valuable tool that he has, and he's so out of alignment with himself that he gives that up. And as we know, that bears out in Ragnarok, because he ends up getting killed in that fight as a result of giving up his sword. So you can't. So the point is that the person who left that comment, I believe, I don't know, because I think they deleted their comment, so I couldn't read the whole thing, but I believe the argument they were going to try and make was that THurisaz is a rune for black magic because it's used in this way. But we have to understand the symbolism behind all of this. We have to understand what it all means and why it's used. So let's just cut to the part where THurisaz comes in to the, hang on one second here. So let's find out where it is. There it is. Okay, so now I haven't read this in its original language, so I'm looking at a translation into English, so I'm aware that there might be something that I'm missing. I think there's some interpretation that might be editorially forced upon the text. It could be exactly what this, whoever translated this means. So we get down to it, and Skirnir is there, and he goes into this big poetic diatribe talking to the giantess fenced in, Girth, telling her to come and marry Frey, which she's very resistant to. And so they go back and forth, and she's saying, she's not going to do that until he says to her, a THurisaz rune for thee, and 3 more I scratch, lechery, loathing, and lust. Off I shall scratch them as on I did scratch them, if of none there be need. Meaning, if you do what I say, I will. First he says, I'm cursing you. He doesn't say I'm going to curse you. He says, I'm cursing you. And what I'm reading here, it says a THurisaz rune, and then it has in parentheses THurisaz. Now that's something that somebody has editorially put in there. I don't know if that's true or not. That may or may not be true, but just for argument's sake, let's go ahead and say that that's true. That that's what that means. That when he says a THurisaz rune for thee and 3 more I scratch, let's just take it at face value that it's the Thurs rune, right? It isn't until he brings that rune out and says, I'm going to use that rune, that I use this rune, like, in the movie, somebody bringing out the crucifix against Dracula. He brings out the Thurs rune, and it's, I command you. He's now commanding her. He curses her. But he says, I'll take the curse off if you do what I want. All right, so And immediately she has a change of heart, and she decides that she does want him. And so what does this say? This says that the thirst rune has an immediate impact on what? A thirst. So this is again bearing out that the THurisaz rune is not a rune that you can use to curse people. It's not what that's not what's happening here. Bear in mind, this is a thirst, and he is pulling out the thirst rune, and she immediately, kowtows to it. So the THurisaz rune, as we know, is a rune that we use against thyrses. And the only one that is truly powerful enough to wield it is one who he himself is half giant, which is Thor. This is why this is his rune. This is why in the thunder wheel it's placed in the east, because that is the giant world. It's not placed there because it is a rune to summon giants. See, this would be somebody's superficial connection. Oh, thirst rune. So if I chant thirst, it's going to raise the giants and summon the giants. No, it's there to protect us from the giants. So this takes an understanding, a deeper, really deeper understanding of how these things work. And, what helped me understand that is, again, I've studied multiple traditions, and in some of the traditions, the gods that are placed in specific directions are there as protectors. They're there to protect us from what's on the other side of that. And if you don't understand that, then you're going to make a mistake, and you're going to make a superficial connection between thirst, giants do black magic. So thirst rune is a rune of black magic. It's annoying to me because it's so superficial and it's such a childish mistake. But anyway, that's part of my problem. I have to be more accepting of others and let them be where they're at. But nevertheless, I'm here to reveal to you what this is. I'd have to go into more depth with this to understand why he scratches runes cursing lechery, loathing, and lust. What I take from that is that is already her nature. Remember, she's a giantess. So giants represent aspects of us seeking to empower our identity out of bounds. And that's why giants run around. They don't respect people's boundaries. They step on things. They bite your head off. Like I said last time, it's not that they're narcissists. Narcissists need attention. They're just totally just wrapped up in themselves. They don't even notice anything or anybody else. So the things that are going to be associated with the true thyrses are going to be representative of us going after what we want, our instincts that are life preservation instincts that don't connect us to other people, and therefore they're harmful, and so they need to be put into check. That's what the thirst rune does. Now, I've used the thirst rune numerous times in my life, and every time that I've used it, there has been people in my life who just disappear. In some cases, they just disappear. In other cases, they will, out of nowhere and for no reason, they will just get upset with me and, irrationally pick a fight with me to where I'm like, what the hell is this all about? What did I do? And then they huff, in a huff, they leave my life. And then, as I look back on it, I realize that, this was somebody, or I become aware that this person, hasn't been respecting my boundaries, and I'm a lot better off without them. So if Skirnir represents the soul, then what is happening here? What is happening here is that Frey, who represents our instincts for physical pleasure and physical satiation, is not in his highest awareness. And Skirnir, representing the soul, is going to whatever it is that is pulling Frey out of his alignment. And Skirnir, as the soul, is putting it back into its place. So he pulls out a THurisaz rune, which is going to immediately put it in its boundaries, and she immediately acquiesces to him. And then he curses her with 3 other runes. Now, we don't know what it means by that, because I don't know of a rune that represents lechery, loathing, and lust. So, rune can just mean he's written some symbols. It just means that he's doing something. So he's using his mojo to put her in her place. But I think what's happening here is that he is saying, I'm going to bring out in you what you are: lechery, loathing, and lust. So let's go back to what happens. Frey, as we know, is perfectly happy, and he goes, oh, I know I'm not supposed to sit in Odin's seat, but I'm going to go do it anyway. And he climbs up and he sits in Odin's seat, which is the highest awareness. Okay? So bear in mind, this is where Odin sits, up here. Frey sits down here. Frey is his traditional carving is of him sitting in full lotus with a fully erect phallus, which means that he's really focused on the second chakra. But being that he is the master of the second chakra, he brings all the blessings of it, which is creativity. So if you want to become a great musician, a great artist, talk to Frey, because Frey will bring that up, because the sex drive is the same drive that we have for creativity. We produce things from that. So he's not where he's supposed to be. And what ends up happening is that he immediately goes into this depression because he sees something that he wants that he knows he can't have. He knows that he can't have it, and he's willing to give up the one tool that he has, that is, that he has been entrusted with in order to preserve the universe, his sword. He gives it up. So again, every time I read this, I keep thinking about that. And so what it means is that since Frey represents our instincts, our drives, literally, very literally, our physical drives, is that it can get us into trouble if they're not in alignment. If we don't have our own internal boundaries set, then we can end up in big trouble. And we end up giving away our defenses. And so in Ragnarok, what brings about Ragnarok, among other things, is our personal drives, our instincts that can't protect themselves anymore. They're out of control. So that's telling us that part of what destroys us is our drives for self-preservation through these kinds of things. So lechery, loathing, and lust. What I take this to mean is that Skirnir is saying in this that Frey is out of balance with what? Lechery, loathing, and lust, because that's what happens. He sees her, he becomes sexually aroused, he has to have her, and he becomes depressed. Now those are another way of saying those 3 words. Lechery, loathing, is now he loathes himself, and lust. So lust, I'm not going to judge lust. Lust is a desire. Lechery is when you're not thinking about yourself, when you're objectifying somebody. So bear in mind that Frey, when he's in his highest awareness, he represents, yes, sexuality and just all the tantric love, if you want to put it that way. But that's a two-way street. That's 2 people together, loving each other and fulfilling their desires with each other and through each other. Yes, there's some objectification, but you have that person's permission, and they're objectifying you, and it's this wonderful unity. Lechery by itself means you're just looking at them and objectifying them. You're not respecting their boundaries. You don't even realize they're a person. So what's happening here is Skirnir is saying that that's what's happening, and he's going to this giantess represents within us those things. Represents when we are out of alignment and we become focused, and we don't have awareness of other people and other things, then we get pulled out of alignment then. So I could go on and on and on. Like I said, I don't want to get too deep into this, but that's what I think is going on here. And so I appreciate, I don't remember the gentleman's name, the guy who left a comment about that, because it's something that should be looked at, and I understand where he's coming from, because on the surface, that's what it looks like. And so, again, this has been my contention from the beginning that, and I'm not talking about this gentleman, I'm not trying to single him out, but the neo-heathen Reconstruction movement, in my experience, they really don't know what they're looking at when they read mythology. They take things at face value, and that's not their fault, because we've been taught to read mythology the way Christians read the Bible. And the Bible is, as you know, I've gone on and on, is not presented as mythology, it's presented as fact. And so they take it as literal fact. And so when people read mythology, pre-Christian mythology, they read it through that lens. And that's why we end up with these literalists who don't believe in any kind of symbolism or anything like that the gods are real people, that Odin is a real flesh and blood guy sitting on a chair somewhere up somewhere, and to think anything else is blasphemy. They have that comes straight out of Christianity. And all that's happened is people are taking their Christian mindset, that's not their fault either, that's what they've been born with, it's been hammered into them, and they just simply transfer it over to pre-Christian mythology. But, the myths are designed to be holographic teaching tools. If you read it superficially and only take it superficially, it will have an effect on you. And so that it has a two-pronged approach. For those that either are less mature or younger or maybe don't think so deeply, it will still get in there and it will have an effect on you. But it's also designed for then the wizard goes and takes it and meditates on the symbolism. And that's why it's important to always get a translation for the names of whatever we're dealing with. Whatever, if we're talking about a god or a giantess, we need to know what the name means, because that will tell you what's going on here. So, again, having read the myth and looking at it again based on this person's thought, the THurisaz Rune is not meant for cursing. It is not designed for black magic. In fact, quite the opposite. And in this case, in this myth, it's actually the rune is used because all of these characters in this myth represent things within you. And so what this means is that the soul comes to your defense when you're out of alignment. The soul comes to your defense to put into alignment those drives within you that are pulling you out of your highest awareness. And so the end result, if I read it correctly, that she and Frey end up getting married, the end result is that you can have your desire, but you first have to get your boundaries in check and other people's boundaries in check, and then you can experience things like sexual desire and lust and have your desires met in a way that will bring higher evolution as opposed to destruction. Okay, so I could go on and on and on, but those are my thoughts about that. So we've got a few people on here. I didn't expect anybody, but let's see. Looks like we've got 3 questions here. So Dean Nevin's question: what kind of Qigong or energy work is safe to use between 12 p.m. and 3 p.m.? Well, the kind of energy work to answer that question, things like the Hool breath. The Hool breath is something that you can do at any time. Any kind of energy work where, like if you just take your hands and place it over the navel, just breathe long and deep. Anything where you're pulling things in, because between 12 and 3 is when, the reason why Dean is asking this is because for celestial Qigong, I do not recommend that people do it in the afternoon, because that's when energy is the hottest. And that's not it can get you can burn yourself out. It's too much heat. So between 12 and 3, you need to use some energy that has some water in it. And like the Hul breath brings the water, anything that brings you down and grounds you to the earth and cools you down, that's a safe one to do. But yeah, anything like any high level, powerful Qigong, the celestial Qigong, that's best done at night. That's when that is most beneficial. Listen up. You've been lied to about the nature of the matrix. What if I told you that you could hack into the matrix? I've done it, and I can teach you how to do it. Click below to watch the free video that I put on my YouTube channel a few years ago that has since gone viral. I discovered that the matrix, like everything else in the universe, operates from certain rules. There are 5 rules that govern the matrix. And then there is one secret technique that, to my knowledge, nobody else has figured out that allows you to hack into the matrix, understanding these 5 rules and using these 5 rules to control, manipulate, and change reality so that you can have exactly what you want out of life. Don't allow yourself to be deceived by the victim mentality that has been thrust upon you by everybody in the media and in modern society, in history, in religion. You have the power to hack into the matrix, to control your life, and have the life of your dreams. Click below, watch the free video, and then learn how you can do what I've been doing for myself over the past few years. Mukund Kashyap. Question. In Celestial Qigong, how does one open one's aura to project an intention? You don't need to do anything. The Celestial Qigong will already do that. You don't need to open your aura, by the way. All you do is just do your Qigong, and as you're doing the close down, send out your intention. You've built up that energy for a reason. So you don't have to do anything. It's already built in. This is the great thing about it. So again, I've said this to you before, but this is for everybody. Don't overthink it. You know, these high-level things, you don't even have to think about it. Don't try that hard. Just do it. If you have an intention you want to put out there, at the end of your session, as you're closing down or after you close down, just send out the intention and then walk away. Leave it alone. Don't push it. You know, that energy is ready to do the work for you. You've built it up. Now it's ready to work for you. Just, if you want to say it out loud, bring to me such and such, you know, the energy will go and bring that to you. Dean Nevins again, question. I'm interested in exploring and healing my dreams and my unconscious limiting beliefs. Could you talk about how Loki and his children are related to dreams and the unconscious? Gosh, could you have asked a more profound question? That's not something I can do in a few minutes. And to be honest, I don't know if I've got the strength to do it. I just had a little nap while I've been working all day. But let's see here. I'll do my best. So I'll talk about I'll talk about Loki and one of his children, just for time's sake, and just because I think these are the two that are most directly applicable to your question. So Loki has a strong association with the north node of the moon. In Vedic astrology and Vedic mythology, Rahu, the north node of the moon, represents your unfulfilled desires that you have come here to experience. So this is where our obsessions and our addictions and our aspirations and our hopes all sort of mingle together. Now, we don't know the difference. We can't tell the difference between our addictions and our desires sometimes. Our hopes, our aspirations, and our addictions, you know, we can't figure them out. And that's the nature of those things. These are the things that bring us into manifestation. So understand that if you really, truly are able to address and bring balance to all of your unconscious issues, you will not come back. You will not reincarnate. because you will have no need to. There will be no desire. And as I keep telling people, that's why it's so important to focus on what brings you joy and go after it. Along the way, you're going to run into your obsessions. I mean, I'm doing it right now. I mean, as you know, my sole desire is surfing. I have enough surfboards. I'm selling them off so that I only have 3 that I'm going to take with me, and those 3 are going to be, they're going to cover any possible conditions I could possibly want. And yet I just saw a surfboard I have to have. I have to have that surfboard. Even knowing that I'm not going to take it with me, I want to go buy it. It's nuts. It's just downright nuts. And I already have one that's almost identical to that one. That's where my soul desire and my obsessions intertwine. So this has to do with your unconscious mind. You're asking about your dreams. You're asking about how to heal your dreams and your unconscious limiting beliefs. So the short answer to that is you're doing it. Just by doing, every time that you do ritual, energy work, mantra meditation, you're already doing it. It's going to come to the surface. It's not going to be a clean process. It's not going to be like, oh, there's that problem, there's that problem. It's going to be like you get yourself in the mud and you go, oh, I did that thing again. That's how you become aware. When it comes to knowing when something is an obsession and when something is a desire, you can only experience that through trial and error. And again, if we go back to this myth, if my interpretation of this myth is correct, that this myth is about within the human being when their physical desires become out of balance and it pulls them out of their integrity. If this were a biblical narrative, then it would have, the person would have ended up, being put to death or, God flaying them alive. And then the story would be never, ever have a wrong thought or a wrong feeling or God will punish you. But it's not. It's mythology. And mythology says, the gods are like human beings. They have their obsessions and, they make mistakes here and there. And so it's saying, go live your life. Go experience things. Go make mistakes. Because the way Rahu works is at the end, when you get to the end of your life and you really let Rahu do his job, which is Loki, you're asking about Loki. You really let Loki do his job. At the end, you go, yep, I've done that. I don't need to do that anymore. I've done enough of that. And it's fulfilled. And then that thing that you have now mastered in a future lifetime will be where Ketu sits, that's the part of you that you don't need anymore. Again, like me, my Ketu's in the 5th house of children. I've never wanted children. Everybody that knows me, that's seen me interact with children says, oh my God, you'd be such an amazing father. Why don't you? I say, I don't want that. I've obviously done that. There was a lifetime where I wanted to have kids so bad. My whole purpose for living is to have kids. Apparently I fulfilled that because now that's the last thing I want. It's not that I hate kids. I actually have a lot of respect for them. I'm one of the few people I know that when I sit down with a kid, I treat them like an adult. I talk to them like they're an adult. And I don't talk down to them or anything like that. So that's what Loki's trying to help you with. The other, you asked about Loki and his children. The only child of Loki's that I want to talk about in terms of your unconscious is, in fact, the unconscious itself, which is his daughter Hela, the underworld. The underworld is your unconscious mind. And Hela herself is, I've had some differences with people who want to use the Old Norse word for Hela, which is hell, and then people make because the only Germanic mythology we have left is the Old Norse, and so people say, no, hell is a place and hell is the goddess, and there's no such word as Hela, but no, that's not true. The place is hell, and her name is in Proto-Germanic is Helia. That's the I believe that's the feminine aspect of hell. But it is true. They are intuiting something which is a truth, which is that she is in fact the place itself. She is in fact a boundary. Talking about boundaries, she is the boundary. And when I visited her, it was I talk about it and I get emotional about it because it was such a powerful and healing experience. But it wasn't that I was in bliss when I was there. It was rather disturbing, and she, for me, was rather disturbing. The sheer power of it was disturbing, but also her seeming aloofness was disturbing. But what I saw was that she herself is the boundary of human consciousness. Now, I don't know where other consciousnesses are able to go, but I know that human consciousness, there is a limit to what it can experience. And the human soul can experience in our universe. There are places that if the soul goes to those places, the soul will get torn to pieces. It won't survive. And that's a lot, because I feel very strongly that the soul is eternal. And what I saw was that she herself was that boundary. And when you go into the underworld, you're taken to the limitation of where human soul consciousness can go. And if you were to go beyond that, you would no longer exist as an individual. And she protects us from losing our identity, but she takes us right to the edge, which is exactly what we need, because in the underworld, what you need to do is get rid of false attachments. And false attachments are always associated with your identity, who you think you are. If you think about it, all of our wounds, all of our psychological wounds have to do with our identity. Let me give you an example. Somebody goes out into the woods and gets bitten by a rattlesnake, right? And the rattlesnake, whatever, injects the poison, and, your foot gets all swollen up and all that, and maybe they lose a toe, let's say. They go to the doctor, and the doctor, says, you're losing, your toe's you got to take off your pinky toe. And it's not something that you want. You go through it, and you're grateful that you survived. So you walk out of that thinking, wow, I'm really glad I survived that. You don't spend any time whatsoever thinking about getting revenge on that snake. You never, because the snake, it wasn't personal. You just happened to put your foot in the wrong place, and the snake just did what it did. It just reacted out of instinct. And you understand that that's just what rattlesnakes do. You don't take it personally. But let's say you're walking in the forest and some guy comes along and he doesn't like you, and he decides with his axe to chop off your pinky toe. You'll spend the rest of your life thinking about where the hell that guy is and getting revenge on him. I know, because I have those same feelings about people in my life. And without getting into any names, there's a few people in my mind that, I wasn't too thrilled, and I got very hurt and upset by some of the things that they did and had a lot of resentments. And truth of the matter is now that there's nothing I could do to those people that would be any worse than what they've already done to themselves. So, revenge is just meaningless. But to have a resentment means it's connected to your idea of yourself. The guy with the axe, you took it as being personal, an attack on your identity. The snake was just a snake. It wasn't anything personal. And I realized that my pinky toe's gone, but man, I got to get on with life. It was just a snake. Big deal. I'm so glad that I didn't die. So that's what happens when we go to the underworld. When we go to the underworld, Hela takes us to the very edge of our limited identity, so that we see how we are insanely attached to something that we think means something to our identity. Because my experience of Hela is, as I'm talking about it, I can see a picture in my mind of her. It's not what you think. What I experienced of her was that she is like, imagine that you're in the blackness of space, and you're floating through and you can't see anything but blackness, then all of a sudden you see some kind of a figure coming towards you, and as you get closer you realize it's a reflection of yourself, until you get right up in front of it and you're looking at yourself. And then you become aware that there's this barrier, this see-through barrier that's all black, and it only reflects your identity. Whatever it is that you are attached to is what's reflected. So imagine you're coming up on this blackness and you see a figure and it's not you, it looks totally different, and then you sit in front of it and maybe, it's whatever. It's a skinny, weak, angry old man. You're not an old man. And then you become aware that, oh, I'm looking at a projection. I'm looking at, something within myself. And then when you see that it's not you, that you are holding on to an illusion of something that you think you are, then imagine that reflection then changes. And then you get to see yourself for who you truly are. That's what happens in the underworld. And it can be a very painful or frightening process, which is why she's represented as half corpse and half beautiful young maiden. And it represents that when you are attached to something that is just an insane attachment, it's not real, it's an illusion, then that illusion starts to, like a dead body, a corpse, it starts to die and get disgusting and gross and maggots. It starts to decompose. You're hanging on to it, but it's dead flesh. It's dying. It's putrid. It's disgusting. It's bacteria and blah. So we see that in her. She represents that. If you see her as a corpse, she's only reflecting back to you what you're bringing to it, which is whatever you're hanging on to. If you see her as a beautiful young maiden, then that means that you're seeing your soul which doesn't die, which is eternal, and which is continuously young. I mean, it's regenerating itself. It's youthful. And then it's something beautiful. And that's why you see her as a beautiful maiden. But she's neither. She is the boundary of human soul conscious awareness. And her job is to have zero agenda on you, so that she can reflect back to you exactly what you bring. And her job is, you're trapped in hell. Imagine that you're in, now when you come up to that, you're floating through the darkness and you come up against that see-through barrier, and then that barrier surrounds you. That barrier surrounds you, and then what you're surrounded with is your projection. And then you go into another world. Maybe you create a hell for yourself, a place of torment. Maybe you create a beautiful afterlife for yourself, and you're walking through the Elysian fields, or you're talking to Buddha or Moses or Jesus. It's all your reflection. And it's all an illusion, whether it's blissful or whether it's frightening. And she has no agenda. She's not there to do anything. If you need to sit in either of those places, if you need to punish yourself for 1,000,000 years because you caused the Holocaust or whatever, then she will surround you and protect you while you allow yourself to have that experience. And when you're done with that experience, you will either become free of all of it, but I was going to say you'll either go to enlightenment or not, but actually you never go to enlightenment if the first place you go is to the underworld. The only people who go to enlightenment are those people who, through living a human life, release their attachments. And you release your soul attachments by fulfilling your desires. That's why I keep talking about that. Fulfill your desires. And if we go back to this myth, Frey represents that. And here we see Frey going out of his true desire, because your desire, when you think about the thing that you want, you're not going to get depressed. So guaranteed, if you're thinking about something that you want to do, if your first feeling is depression, that means that it's not your true desire. Having said that, what can happen is you think about what you want, you get really excited, and then you get depressed. That's different. That means you've run into your own unconscious conflict. And the only way to know the difference between those two is through experience. So that's why there's no guilt in that. And Skier Near the Soul goes out and says, Frey, that's what you want? Okay, I'll help you go get it. Even in doing so, Frey gives up his power. Even in, you know, we all do it. So there's no judgment. There's no judgment there. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but it was an interesting little discussion. All right, so there's only two of us on here. I don't think there's any more questions. I've been talking for just about an hour, so we're good. All right, so that's it. We've got there's a couple of things that I put together just recently. One is the 5 rules to master the matrix, and to experience that, you can go to matrix.thunderwizard.com. Okay, so I put together a teaching. Yeah, I put together a video teaching series about that, and we've got the Manifestation Mastery course, which if you go to thunderwizard.com and look for it, you can click on that and get started. For those of you who are following the Manifestation Mastery course, there are 2 levels. There's level A and level B. Level A is the introductory part of whatever topic we're talking about, and that goes up on the free YouTube channel. And then for those that want to dig deeper and get to the, you know, the more advanced things connected to whatever the subject is, then they can go to the B level videos, which are on the thunderwizard.com Patreon site. You can click on that. So the idea is that you get both levels. If somebody doesn't want to take that course, that's fine. They'll still get plenty of information. But if they want to, they can go and sign up for the course. Can't think of anything else off the top of my head, so we'll just leave it at that. All right, guys, thank you. I think everybody left. Okay. All right, so that's it. I will talk to you guys soon. Oh, by the way, please subscribe and click on the bell button so that you'll be notified every time that I have a video comes up. Also, go to this link here so that you can enjoy the live question and answer videos. If you want to learn about all my books and my DVDs, you want to find out all the courses that I teach, then go to courses.thunderwizard.com. If you think that I should stay on this channel, and if you think I should be telling the truth, if you think that I should stand up to these billionaire gurus who are trying to silence me from telling the truth, then I want you to go here, thunderwizard.com, and subscribe.